Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. Thanks for joining me. It is Friday, and I know you're excited about the weekend, especially since things are opening up. And mask on, mask off, and practicing your smiles. That was your challenge from a couple of days ago, and I'm so delighted that you've joined me again here at KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere, kcaaradio.com. Hit the listen now button if you're not in your car, or in California Minute, it'll be streaming everywhere, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Tiki Live. There's just too many to list, but I know that you know that this is a show about hope and happiness. So my job is to start your day in the best way possible so that you can have the best day ever and be happy 88% of the time. Why 88 and not 100? Because if you're 100% happy, you're dead, and we do not want that. 88 is a good number. It's a homonym in Mandarin. 8 is a lucky number in Chinese. And if you could see me right now, you'll see that I'm not Swedish. I'm actually Chinese. So I took the liberty of saying that everyone's birthright is to be 88% happy. So double good fortune. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, and I'm still trying to get you to drink that rose-colored Kool-Aid simply because it feels better. And when you feel better, your body does better, you're physically more healthy, you have side effects like more laughter, which is cardio for your soul, more smiling, which might attract you to other smiling, happy people, and then we'll get out of this pandemic in the most positive of ways. And the research has shown when you're more positive, not only do you feel better, good things happen. So I know that it's happened in my life. The happier I am, the more I focus on what I am grateful for and what I appreciate, the more wonderful things that come, including now being your morning host show here at KCAA. Thanks to my big boss in Texas, Fred Lundgren, who is the owner of KCAA, to my station manager, Mark Westwood, who runs things out of our Loma Linda base, as well as all of the important people who help my show run smoothly. Rick in the morning, especially, who's now helping me. He taught me how to use to work Audacity so that I can take out all those hiccups in the show and my bloopers so I don't get fined. But anyways, today I'm so delighted. I have a super duper special show for a number of reasons. This is the last time I'm going to be talking at ya before Father's Day, which is a very special day. I have been blessed to have two dads. My one Chinese dad who I resemble the way I look is on the other side in heaven. He lost a valiant battle to lymphoma. So Dr. David Pay, I love you. Happy Father's Day. And I'm so grateful to be your daughter. And then I have a bonus dad, Graham Martin, who's 91, still on this side. And I just love hearing him laugh. Happy Father's Day to you, honoring you, and thanking you for replacing my dad in the energy of I can fall back onto you. So if you're a dad and you're listening, I'm wishing you a very, very happy Father's Day, and knowing that you above all, you don't need the flowers, you don't need the cards. Those are all nice, but I hope that you honor yourself and the father that you are, and that you do the best that you can do with the time that you have, the resources you have, and honor yourself in the work that you've done as a father. I guess I also could say thank you to my big brother, Michael Bernard Beckwith, who kind of is like a big brother slash dad, in the sense that he supports me fully and wholly. So I'm hoping if you're listening and you're celebrating your dad, if you don't know what to get him, you can always go to drmarissa.life and give me a message that I can put on my social media for him through my nonprofit. There's a link there. Also, write him a little note. I know that when my kids, I mean, it's nice when they buy me something that I want, but the most special thing that they get for me is my daughters write beautiful letters and beautiful poetry. My younger one, Sarah, is a poet and English major that she doesn't want to take. She's a double major in psychology and Chinese, but couldn't get her. She got a letter from the English department asking her to switch majors, which is really nice. But if you want to do something that absolutely will delight your father, write them a little note telling them why they love having them or having you as your father. So there's a gift idea that I promise that will absolutely delight them more than cologne. I promise. All right. And we also have, coming after the break, a special question from April about those of us, or those of you who don't have a dad around. Either you were adopted and have a different dad, or maybe your parents gave you up, or maybe you had a deadbeat dad, or a dad that abandoned you and you're still harboring some righteous indignation about that. That question is the question of the day today. Second segment when we get back from the news and our sponsor spot. So make sure you come back for that. And then I have a special treat, an interview with Eisha Mason to celebrate another special occasion that is today, actually, Juneteenth. And it's a special day. Some of you may not even know that that exists. It is a celebration day of the end of slavery. And so I brought her to talk about that and repatriation and honoring those who helped build this country, the slaves that were brought over. They didn't want to come, and yet they were on the backs of their hard labor was much of the wealth gained in the beginnings of America. So honoring that and really looking at how we can acknowledge and be aware and heal from the beginnings that were maybe not the best, and to honor those who did give their lives and their blood, sweat, and tears. So that's Juneteenth coming up in the third segment. So if you would like to be part of the show, either as a guest or as promoting your event or your new book, please do contact me at drmarissa.life and we'll chat there. And we'll be right back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah, here on KCAA AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. We'll be right back. And welcome back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice, I'm Not Using It, Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, every weekday morning now. And we're at one of my favorite segments on the show, which I'm calling Just Breathe with Dr. Marissa, where I get to try to answer a question for something that is not helping your happiness. So we're going to try to up-level that today. We have April who's called in. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Marissa. Thank you for having me again.
Of course. And if you could just get closer to your mic, that would be awesome. We're fixing some technical things going on, but the volume is one of them. So let's breathe together. As usual, put your palms up on your lap, feet on the ground, eyes gently closed, taking a deep breath in with me. And releasing, soft shoulders, soft elbows, soft knees. Another deep breath in. And releasing all the stories and the drama. And one last deep breath in. Connecting with me through chi, eternal energy, the breath of life that connects us all and that connects us right now so that I can hear your question, your issue, and come up with a solution. So what's keeping you from being happy?
I believe that I have reached a place of acceptance on this, so it does not interfere with my happiness in general. But I would be lying if I said it doesn't creep up and bother me sometimes. My question is, how does one cope when they always wanted a dad and never got one?
Great question, especially now that Father's Day is coming up. And I'm sure that that sort of triggers, those times that you really, really want a dad. So first of all, the good news is you're aware that it is something that is taking you down a notch. So that's the good news. You know that that's an area, you've acknowledged that that's an area, and most of the time you're probably just fine with it because you don't want to deal with it, or you don't think about it, or you just, oh, it's coming up and I'm not going to think about it, which is not a bad thing. However, I'm going to suggest and recommend that you actually take this little thing out and let's do a little love treatment on it and see if that can't smooth some of the painful edges of feeling like you missed out on having a dad. So in your particular instance, you did not have a dad because
he chose not to be a dad, and that's part of what is confusing, is that he had a choice to be a dad and he decided not to. So he was absent and unsupportive, but he's around. And I have chosen not to have a relationship with him because I felt at one point that I was trying to be a daughter to someone who wasn't being a dad. And I was tired of playing this sort of role of a daughter without getting the return of what I feel a dad should be.
Mm-hmm. All right. So the good news is you're not alone. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who have similar. I don't have time to go look up the stats of how many deadbeat dads there are around. I'm sure there are plenty. And it does, it smacks similar to what I went through that some of you know from reading my book, 8 Ways to Happiness, that I grew up with a mom who didn't think that I was the most beautiful and most wonderful, as moms are supposed to, right? So dads are supposed to be a dad, be a man, take care of your kids, do what's necessary, be around. That's what dads are supposed to do. Moms, that's not right. Okay. And on one hand, everything that you're saying is true. Everything you're saying makes sense. And you have every right to have righteous indignation around not having a good dad.
So
right?
yes, all my therapy all my therapy has told me that. So my hurt is justified. I
Yes.
know that.
Yes. But it isn't.
Okay.
Okay. So,
All right.
well, we're going to go at this a little different way.
Okay.
When I was told that my mom's only job was to pop me out and the rest is gravy, I was told that by Edwene Gaines on the Agape stage when I was grappling one more time with this anger and justified resentment and indignation against my mom. And she said that something happened. Something happened where I said I could spend the next 40, 50 years of my life with my justified resentment and anger towards my mom and you towards your father, because they should have done something different, because they should have acted in the way that expectations for fathers are. But if I use the same analogy and tell you that his only job was to help put your name on the birth certificate and the rest is gravy, now you have a choice. You have a choice every single moment, that every time you think about your father, your bio sperm doning father, to either thank him for giving the egg, the sperm, so that you could come into existence. And then the times that he was able to ask how you're doing, or he was able to, in the best way that he could at the time, try to connect with you, or since that he is doing, continues to do the very best that he can. He cannot go back and undo all the shiitake that he did treating you the way he did. He cannot undo that. He cannot rise up to the occasion of making up for what he didn't do, nor proceeding now from ground zero to becoming what you want as a dad. He will never be able to do that because he cannot. Every single person does the very best that they can with the time that they have, the resources they have, and the moment they're having it. Everybody does. So you have a choice to continue to carry this justified indignation that he can never do better in. Never. Even if he's nice to you now, he can't escape your expectation and righteous indignation. So you have a choice. You either let it go, let it go. And I mean, really let it go. Letting go of the expectation of what you wanted from him. So this is not his work. This is your work. And it's not therapy, because I don't want you to say anymore that I have a right to resent him. You have a right, but you have a choice to focus on what he was able to do. And honey, he donated that sperm. And because of that sperm, you are alive. And you are a magnificent, one of a kind alive that came out of that. Take a breath. Now you may be, righteously saying that's not fair. He doesn't get a break. He shouldn't get a break. Dad shouldn't do that. Da, 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 da. You can, and you've been singing that song. You've been singing that song for decades. I'm going to suggest that that song needs to be retired because it doesn't get you any happier.
So what you're saying is I need to replace that song with
everybody does
thank
the very best that he can.
Thank you for the gift of life.
Correct.
Father.
Correct. Thank you for being
Your
a
gift
part of
of
my
life.
DNA to pop me out. Mom popped me out. You provided the sperm. I couldn't be popped out unless it was an immaculate conception, and those stopped a while back. So he did contribute to your being here. It's not, yes, if you hold the expectation of what a good dad is supposed to be, that falls short. Or you can stop doing that and stop trying to get him to measure up, which he never will, and give him the credit for just helping you be alive. It's your choice.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Got it.
I mean, you sound better already. I mean, really,
I got it. I
sounds
mean,
stupid.
I've dealt with this so long. I am at a place of acceptance, but
Yay!
putting it very clearly into those terms absolutely changes the narrative in my subconscious. And now I can replace that broken record, and I will.
Yippee! Let's give
And I
you
know
a
from
little.
experience that
There's your reinforcement. We're at the end of the segment, so I have to say goodbye, but I'm so glad that we got to that point. I believe you, April. You're going to replace the song. If you've just tuned in, it is Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, AM 1050, the station, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, the station that leaves no listener behind. We're going to be right back with more. Peace in, peace out. Thank you so much, to do my little happiness magic. We'll be right back with more. Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. We'll be right back. And we're back. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm Not Using It. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show. And it is celebrating Juneteenth today. So I wanted to bring someone special on to help me understand it a little more and see what we can do, all of us in this country, to make things better than what they are. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Eisha Mason. Welcome, welcome. I am so delighted to have you. I'm so delighted we've known each other for a long time, for like almost a dozen years, but this is our first longer than 2-minute conversation, and I'm so glad about it. And you have been all over the place doing all kinds of peace work. You were a director. I'll let you introduce kind of the highlights of your history. So I know you were the director of a Nobel Peace Prize winning organization.
My friends just always elevate my status, which I'm very flattered. I worked for the American Friends Service Committee, which is a Quaker-based social justice organization. And yes, they did win a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that's not all the truth, though.
Long before I got there. And I was the associate director for the West region of the US, because it's a global organization.
Beautiful. And you also organized the first nonviolence something in LA?
The Season for Nonviolence in Los Angeles, which was in 1999. And that event changed my life, and it's still thriving, still going strong.
That's super awesome. So tell me, what is Juneteenth for those who may be listening? And that's a new term. I know that there are people who are not aware that June 19th, I believe, is a special day. Why is that?
Well, in 1865, the Civil War was over. But not all of the people who were enslaved throughout the country knew that they were now free. They didn't all know about the Emancipation Proclamation. So June 19th, 1865 is the date when the last state, the last group of people who had been enslaved were informed that they were no longer in bondage. And that was when the announcement was made in Texas.
Wow. So very important day.
Yeah. 2 years after the war was over was when these people found out they were no longer enslaved. They were free.
Wow. Wow. And your background, you're an African-American woman. Where do you hail from?
I hail from Baltimore, Maryland, and my people go way back in the state of Maryland.
So you have been very intimately involved in peace efforts, nonviolent. How do you stay in that space when you see something like George Floyd happen? When you continue to hear about all the names of those innocent people who are killed just because of their dark skin?
It's a practice. The past 2 years have been incredibly challenging for this country. It's been incredibly challenging for people of conscience throughout this country. And it's been really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have never had such a rigorous practice to stay true to the kind of person that I want to be, and to keep my heart open and to keep my heart from breaking.
Mm-hmm.
And so the years of a spiritual practice, a spiritual discipline have really supported me in the last couple of years with the practice of meditation. I write a lot. I do a lot of writing. I spend a lot of time in nature. And yet perhaps the most, in addition to meditation, the most important support I've had is the support of community, of being with like-minded individuals who have that shared intention, a shared vision for how we want our society to be, which is one based on the dignity and worth of every human being, and also people who are committed to doing this work of the heart. Like I find that if I'm in action to help fulfill the vision that I have, then depression or anger don't get the best of me.
So you keep your eye on the prize, so to speak.
And keep walking forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's put the moose on the table, which is my Canadian version of the elephant in the room. So for all those who get their undies all wrapped up when the whole term Black Lives Matter come up, and you get one group that says, well, it's all lives that matter. What about the Native Americans? What about, why are we focusing on Black Lives Matter? And quickly move into all lives matter. We're all the same. We all bleed red. We're, it's one race. We don't need to continue to revisit the sins of our fathers, so to speak. Revisit slavery, revisit all the wrongs that have been done. I haven't done anything. I'm not a slave owner. So, why am I being called a racist now? I didn't do those things. What do you say to them? What do we say to them?
Well, for one thing, I'm very mindful not to call anyone a racist as a noun. That is your identity. That's not your identity unless you choose it. But people do have racist thoughts. They do have values, or they may have behaviors that are racist, but those are things that we pick up and that we can put down. Let me say that again. You can pick that up. You can put that down. And the past is present until we address the past. Mm-hmm. It's with us all the time, unconsciously, subliminally, until we are able to meet our past as it was and fully embrace what happened in our past and go through what can be a painful process of healing. That's true for an individual, and that's true for a country. And part of what we're challenged with today and historically is developing the capacity to do that work, developing the capacity to be uncomfortable, to be able to face that pain. Keeping our intention on the purpose for doing this is for healing. The purpose for doing this is to create something anew, but I can't skip it. I can't skip it. Otherwise, the wound just continues to fester. And we're in a culture, we're in a society that doesn't encourage that. We're in a popular culture right now that wants everything simplified. It's this or that. It's
black or white.
That. Right. And that's not real life. That's not real life. Part of maturing as a human being is our ability to hold complexity, our ability to be able to hold difficulty, pain, challenge, uncomfortability, because we realize we're more than that. It's a very immature place to be when it's like, I can't tolerate any discomfort. Well, if that's true, you're stuck. You can't grow. You can't evolve. You can't fully access life. So for very selfish reasons, people would want to consciously build that capacity to look at the full spectrum of what's going on here. And when people say, well, that's the past, that's simply not true. It's present.
So what is the alternative to saying what I just said? Is it what one of my white friends said? She said, until George Floyd happened, I really did not understand the level of racism that we had in this country. So that to me is like, okay, that's awareness. Now, how much awareness do we, is it important for white Americans to admit that much of the wealth that was built in our country was on the backs of slaves, the majority of which who were Black, African American, yanked from their homes in a slave trade that you cannot just ignore? Or is that part of it? Because I'll tell you, I just saw something go by that they don't even want any of that kind of education in the public school system. Right. It's like, how do you not teach that? Because that's the truth, right?
Yeah. And yet, this is the first time many people have ever heard of Juneteenth.
True.
And this is an important part, not of Black history, but of American history.
Right.
And if we do not learn, if we do not face our history, then we are doomed to repeat it again and again. And some folks will think, so what? It doesn't affect me. I'm just fine. But and this is from my background, but it affects your soul. You can plead ignorance for only so long. And then when does ignorance become willful ignorance?
Right.
An ignorance of convenience. It's an illusion to think I can be, I love what Martin Luther King said, that we will all, come together and thrive, or we will all die together. Like that's the way the universe works. We're all interconnected.
Right.
And so you don't become aware, you don't get educated, you don't take action. Really, you don't do that to help these other people. You do that to help yourself.
Right.
It's a selfish reason to do it. You do that to as part of choosing a different identity, as part of embodying a different set of values, as part of making amends, not for what your ancestors did, but for the fact that you benefit every day from that system. How can we share power? How can we share the blessings of this system? That's what's in front of us. And we say Black Lives Matter because up until now, the evidence is around us. They have not. And you mentioned the Native American community. Let me absolutely bring the Native American community into that conversation, because there is no other group that has faced genocide at that level.
Well, yeah, that residential school story up in Canada was just so horrifically sad. And I guess that's the part, maybe COVID helped us take a good stock look where we didn't before. Maybe, hopefully, because, I came to the States from Canada and, I chose to be American after 9/11. And, all that, the Vanderbilts and all the first families and all the wealth and all of that. And I can remember just this process of understanding how that happened. Like it wasn't, luck. It wasn't, well, they just worked hard. People were used, people were abused, and the reluctance of white Americans to share power or acknowledge the past. I'm not saying all of them, but the ones in power, certainly number 45, is a great example of just, I half jokingly, and I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, I started saying this because it's my way of trying to jolt people into becoming aware. But let's put the moose on the table. It's not MAGA. It's not Make America Great Again. It's MAWA, Make America White Again. I don't want to share my power. I don't want to have better voting practices to include all. I don't want, our states to be more diverse. And, I want it to be the lynching laws that are still not, passed. I mean, how much more do we have to look at before we put that moose on the table and say, you're either for valuing diversity or you're not.
If you're not, what is that about? Like, what are you so afraid of? And I remember James Baldwin wrote, maybe one reason people are so afraid. Maybe one reason people are so full of hate is because if they gave it up, they would have to deal with their own pain. And I think there's such wisdom and insight in that statement.
I hope that's true.
There's nothing life-affirming or life-giving about hating.
Yeah. Well, you and I know that, but you look at Capitol Hill. That's a party, right? They were happy to be hating. Happy. Watching that guy on the megaphone was just like, oh my God. Then he wanted to go after the media. Sorry. I have to go back to my discipline. Extra meditation after this. So how does, because we've talked about the other side. Now, how does
can I
Yeah, please.
But my sense of it is that hate cannot be compartmentalized like that. Rage cannot be compartmentalized like that. It spills over. It spills over into your relationships with the people you're close to. It spills over into your workplace. It cannot be contained like that. So it's a poisonous thing, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, whether you get a high from it in that moment or not. It's poisoning you. And deep down, I think people know that unless they've become numb. And that's even more tragic.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I hate, I'm usually pretty positive, but there's a lot of numbnuts out there.
There's a lot of numbness out there. Yeah.
So what do you say to African Americans and Blacks who, I remember after George Floyd happened, the murder of George Floyd happened, I saw a post of a friend of mine who said, this stuff hurts. Like I wasn't kidding about being pulled over because of my skin color. Like I'm not making this stuff up. And how do you stay in that nonviolent place when it continues to happen? The news reports continuing, the police brutality for specific Black and brown population. What do you say to help the population that's so angry on the other side?
I can speak from my experience with Black people and my own experience. And there are times that rage is appropriate. And yet if you stay in anger or in rage too long, just as I said, for the rest of the country, it's true for us too. If I stay in rage too long, it's unhealthy. Mm-hmm. It will hurt me physically. It will hurt me emotionally. It will hurt me psychically and spiritually. Mm-hmm. So, and what I also know is that underneath that rage, there is profound hurt, profound wounding. So much of this past year, I've had the opportunity to organize, co-facilitate healing events for the Black community specifically, where we have safe spaces in which we can do some of that grieving and healing and venting work. Mm-hmm. That's essential, because if you're going to take action, you want to take it from the healthiest place possible. So we don't bypass those emotions. We don't judge those emotions, but we're finding a way to take care of ourselves, which tends to happen in community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I have found, and again in my own experience, the times that I'm yelling at the television or the radio, and I have taken the time to do my practice, it's like, why am I yelling? What power am I giving to that person, that group, that institution? And then what is that saying about me? That I'm powerless? Mm-hmm. And I know that's not true. Because, I know who I am. I know whose I am. So I know I have power. So then the question becomes, so what am I going to do with my power? What action am I going to take? How am I going to engage in and take action for what I believe in? And I know the outcome doesn't matter as much as that I took the action. I moved that energy in the right direction. And at the right time, conditions will be right. And that shift will take place. Mm-hmm. Even the shift that's taken place in the last 18 months is extraordinary. Mm-hmm. But that was built on the work of countless individuals over years of seeming inertia when we suddenly hit that tipping point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, I just had a click. Thank you for that, which is when I'm yelling, I'm giving away my power. I'm actively handing it over. So I don't want to do that. I want to.
I used to work for a guy in the film business, and he never yelled on the set. And it was just so cool. And I said, how do you do that? He said, well, when you know what you're doing, you never have to yell. Wow.
Wow.
And when you're in a march, you're going to make a lot of noise because that's part of why you're there. But when I am at home alone, yelling at the TV, no, I've forgotten who I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm feeling helpless. I'm feeling overwhelmed. And I can do something about that.
Mm-hmm. And that's another shift. Thank you for that. Doing something doesn't mean necessarily shaking your fist or doing a march. Doing something can be processing through the emotions that you are having so that you can move it out into a different place.
Move it into action. I do want to make that clear. Like you don't want to act. It reminds me of after 9/11, people were in a totally reactionary place and we made tragic decisions. So we want to, as a movement, we're working for change in this moment and we're building a vision of society. So we want to honor those emotions, take care of those emotions, and act from that place of wholeness, act from that place of clear vision and intention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the BS belief systems that I've heard, this is sort of I'm taking a left turn here, but I want to talk about it because nobody talks about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm known for that, that some white or Caucasian Americans don't want to be aware or acknowledge what happened in slavery because of the money that would have to the reparations that would have to be done. And so that's one of the reasons, if not the strongest reason, to say that wasn't me, that those, times past, that was a long time ago, that's part of whatever. Speak to that.
Well, I can share some facts. I mean, after the Japanese internment during World War II, compensation was paid to those families. And after the Civil War, compensation was paid to slave owners. And many people don't know that. But they were each paid $300 per slave, which is the equivalent about $8,000 today.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So slave owners get compensation, but those whose labor was exploited receive nothing. Now, people will say, well, what about the 40 acres and a mule? And there was a proclamation that each formerly enslaved person be given 40 acres and a mule. But when President Andrew Johnson became president, he annulled that proclamation. So people didn't get that 40 acres and a mule. So if we have given reparations in the past, when we have compensated people in the past, and yet no one has been more exploited, whose labor has been more exploited in this country, how do we justify, well, no, we can't really do that. We can't really pay reparations. That's a real soul searcher about, well, what is that really about?
Right. What, has anybody done the numbers? Like, what would that be and how would that happen? Is there?
I think I can't speak with authority on that.
Okay.
I know that people have done that analysis, and there are multiple ideas about how that might happen. Like if there weren't cash, well, what about education, or what about
an extra
all
vote?
These things?
Right.
But when we get right down to it, you paid the slave owners the equivalent of $8,000, and their labor was not exploited. How do you justify that?
You can't. You just can't. Just can't.
So if we have a gazillion dollars for war and defense, then we can find a way. We can find a way.
Absolutely. Wow. I'm so glad I asked that question. I was wondering if I should or shouldn't, but I'm so glad, because I had no idea. And I knew this would happen. We're already to the end of the time, but I'll definitely have you back. It's been a delight. I know now why Rev said he loves you. I'm my big brother, and I look forward to more discussions. How can we support you and the work that you're doing? First of all, I'm giving you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award. All my guests, but I hear your name all the time. I see the things that you're doing. I'm glad to hear. I saw that the listening sessions that you've done. You'll be happy to know I got to facilitate one in Santa Monica for the Asian Hate. So we're in this together. You're another satellite sister of mine. I call Akuyo Graham a satellite. So you're my new satellite sister, because we come out of Agape, and we're not followers. Michael creates leaders. And so we're out doing our thing, and I'm honored to call you my satellite sister now. So how do we support or find you?
I'm so easy to find, because my website is aishamason.com.
There you go.
So that's as simple as it gets. And information about the Community Healing Forum or Black Community Healing Forum, which are two different entities, is there as well. My message would be, we need to take care of our hearts. We need to do that healing work. We need to do that practice, and we need to organize. You've got to embody it in action.
Beautiful.
Organize.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. It's so much fun.
It is. And that's it for today. You're going to have to tune in on Monday. You're going to have a whole weekend without me, but keep it tuned to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced with Dr. Marissa. Have the best weekend ever. Have the best Father's Day ever. Peace in, peace out. World peace through inner peace.